What if I told you that in just 2 weeks of the NFL season, the entire Super Bowl futures market has been flipped upside down? One single injury to a superstar quarterback, a couple of shocking upsets, and suddenly the favorites we all thought were locks don't look so untouchable anymore. The Cincinnati Bengals, sitting at a perfect 2-0 record, should be in the conversation with the league's top contenders. But instead, because of devastating injury news, they've become the team with the longest odds among all the undefeated squads. And this isn't just any team, it's a team that was considered a legitimate Super Bowl contender just days ago. So let's break down exactly what happened, why the betting markets have reacted so dramatically, and what it means for every team involved in this early season chaos. The headline, of course, belongs to Joe Burrow, the face of the Bengals franchise, the quarterback who led them to a Super Bowl appearance 2 years ago, is now set to miss at least 3 months after undergoing toe surgery. Reports confirmed that Burrow, who looked a little less mobile in Week 1 but still managed to guide Cincinnati to back-to-back wins, suffered a worsening injury that couldn't be ignored. And with that news, sportsbooks wasted no time reshaping the NFL futures landscape. Before Week 2 kicked off, Cincinnati was sitting at plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl. That's not favorite status, but it's a respectable position in the mix with legitimate contenders. After all, with Burrow healthy, this team always had a puncher's chance. But now, with Jake Browning under center for the foreseeable future, those odds ballooned to plus 8,000. That's not just a small adjustment. That's the single largest shift in Super Bowl futures we've seen all season. Think about how dramatic that is. This team is 2-0. They're tied with 7 other franchises for the best record in football right now. And yet, the market is saying without Burrow, they're basically irrelevant. Among those 8 undefeated teams, Cincinnati's plus 8,000 is by far the longest shot. For context, the Indianapolis Colts, another team nobody expected to be 2-0, saw their odds move in the opposite direction. They were plus 7,000 heading into Week 2, but after beating the Broncos, their odds improved significantly to plus 4,000. That means the Colts, who were widely predicted to finish near the bottom of the AFC South, are now considered twice as likely as Cincinnati to make a Super Bowl run, despite having nowhere near the same level of roster talent. That's the Joe Burrow effect. One player can mean everything in this league. And while Cincinnati is reeling from this blow, they're not the only storyline in the futures market. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. If I had told you before the season that the Chiefs would be 0-2, you'd probably laugh it off as impossible. But here we are. They opened the season with a frustrating loss to the Chargers, then followed it up with a tough defeat at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. And just like that, the defending champs find themselves in a hole. The markets have responded by pushing their Super Bowl odds back from plus 800 before the opener, to plus 1,000 after Week 1, and now to plus 1,200 after Week 2. Even with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and Andy Reid calling plays, Vegas is clearly nervous. History backs up that nervousness. Only 3 teams in NFL history have started 0-2 and gone on to win the Super Bowl: the 1993 Cowboys, the 2001 Patriots, and the 2007 Giants. That's it. The odds are stacked heavily against Kansas City, and while no one is writing them off yet, they are suddenly in dangerous territory. And the market is telling us exactly that. The Chiefs' stumble has also reshaped the AFC West race. Entering the season, Kansas City was the division favorite at minus 110. Now they're sitting at plus 200. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Chargers, who face the Raiders on Monday night, have moved into the favorite role at plus 150. That's a huge early season swing. The Raiders themselves are still seen as a long shot at plus 750. But if they can pull off a Monday night upset, we might see this division picture shift even more. But not all odds movement is about contenders falling back. Sometimes it's about underdogs rising. Let's go back to those Colts for a moment. Ahead of Week 1, they were the 3rd choice in the AFC South at plus 350, behind the Texans and Jaguars. Now, after rallying to beat the Broncos and starting 2-0, their odds to win the division have jumped from plus 240 to plus 155. Suddenly, they're the favorites. The Texans, who entered the season as the top pick, are now at plus 190, but could still reclaim the lead depending on how they perform in their Monday night matchup against Tampa Bay. The AFC South, which many people expected to be mediocre at best, is quickly becoming one of the most fascinating division races in football. Meanwhile, some teams have seen their odds collapse into irrelevance. The Miami Dolphins, for example, began the season at plus 8,000 to win the Super Bowl. Not amazing odds, but not terrible either. After getting absolutely dismantled by the Colts in Week 1, those odds plummeted to plus 12,500. And now, after Week 2, they sit at plus 20,000, the seventh longest odds in the league. That's a remarkable fall from grace for a team many thought had enough firepower to at least be a playoff contender. Then there are the Chicago Bears. Talk about a free fall. The Bears opened the year with plus 3,500 odds to win the Super Bowl. That wasn't completely insane given their roster upgrades, but it did feel a bit optimistic. After a Monday night loss to the Vikings in Week 1, they slipped to plus 5,000. And after getting blown out by the Lions in Week 2, those odds ballooned to plus 10,000. They're not quite in Dolphins territory yet, but let's just say optimism in Chicago has dried up quickly. Speaking of the Vikings, their situation is interesting too. After losing 22-6 to the Falcons on Sunday night, they slipped from plus 2,500 to plus 3,300. Their offense has shown flashes, especially with that big fourth quarter against the Bears in Week 1, but overall, things look shaky. Rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy is still finding his footing, and while that's understandable, sportsbooks aren't giving Minnesota much leeway. They've gone from dark horse to borderline pretender in just 2 weeks. And let's circle back to the AFC North for a moment, because Burrow's injury has massive ripple effects beyond the Super Bowl. Division odds have shifted dramatically. The Bengals went from plus 210 to win the division to plus 750. That's an enormous gap, and it tells you just how much confidence has evaporated in Cincinnati's ability to stay afloat without Burrow. On the other hand, the Baltimore Ravens, who were already seen as the favorites, have become even heavier chalk. They moved from minus 130 to minus 330, making them the second biggest divisional favorite in the league, trailing only the Buffalo Bills, who are an overwhelming minus 650 to win the AFC East. What makes this so fascinating is how quickly things can change. Just 1 week ago, all 8 preseason favorites to win their divisions remained the betting favorites after Week 1. Now, after just a single additional slate of games, we've seen 2 divisions flip. The Colts are now the top choice in the AFC South, and the Chargers have edged ahead in the AFC West, while the Bengals have fallen out of contention entirely in the North. This is exactly why futures markets are so volatile early in the year. Every week brings a new opportunity for chaos. So what do we make of all this? Well, if you're a bettor, it's a reminder that injuries can reshape the entire landscape overnight. The Bengals are the clearest example. One day you're a legitimate contender at plus 2,000, and the next you're sitting at plus 8,000 because your quarterback went under the knife. It doesn't matter that you're undefeated. It matters who's taking snaps under center. And if history tells us anything, the sportsbooks are usually right to adjust this way. If you're a fan, though, it's also a reminder that nothing is written in stone. Yes, Kansas City is 0-2, but they've been here before with adversity and come out stronger. Yes, the Bengals look finished without Burrow, but crazy things happen every season. And yes, teams like the Colts or even the Texans could rise up and shock the world in a division nobody thought mattered. 10 years from now, we might look back on this moment as the turning point of the season. The week when the Chiefs' dynasty started to crack, when the Bengals' window slammed shut, or when a new contender like the Colts began its improbable rise. Or maybe, just maybe, we'll look back and laugh at how overblown the odds shifts were, once Mahomes and company ripped off 8 straight wins or Burrow made a miraculous early return. That's the beauty of the NFL. It's unpredictable, chaotic, and every week feels like a season of its own. So buckle up, because if this is what the futures market looks like after Week 2, just imagine what it'll look like in November.